Are we working now? Is do I need to be louder or is that like oh wow, okay. I hear it. Alrighty. Well, good evening everybody. Oh my gosh, it just keeps getting louder. As you can tell, I'm very nervous. But we're just gonna power through it because that's what we have to do. So this semester has definitely been an adventure, very life changing, and ultimately something that I never thought that I would ever do. For most of you guys who know me, I'm very much a homebody. I hadn't ever been out of my own home longer than like a week and a half. So just up and leave for 4 months, leaving behind everything that I knew, and everybody that I know was definitely something that I just never thought possible because that's just really not who I am. But as I had started to look at what I was going to be doing in the spring semester, I realized that I wasn't able to take college classes because the university wasn't going to let me until the fall. And so I had a whole semester open. I talked to God. I was like, hey, I really don't know what to do with my life. I don't know, like, should I go somewhere? Should I just stay home? What should I do? Like, do I get a job? I don't know what I'm doing. And I just happened to look at the International Mission Board's trips. I was thinking about taking several trips, like maybe 2 a month, which I know is kind of crazy, but I was like, okay, I'll just do that. It'll work out that way. And then I realized that they have semester-long trips. I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. Like, this is my opportunity. And I had, first person that I told was Debbie Kruger, which, as a lot of you guys know, is my biggest mentor when it comes to this. She's taught me just about everything I know about missions because she was the only Sunday school teacher I had for like 6 years, and it was just like a one-on-one class with her. So, but her and Dwayne have been very influential in this journey. And so I told her first, I was like, I'm going to Mexico. That's where I'm going. I'm going to Mexico. And then she was like, oh, really? Like, you going to Mexico? I was like, yeah, I think that's where God's calling me. And then several people later, a couple dreams thrown in there. It was very clear God did not want me to go to Mexico. I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't know where else to go. I was like, I know a little bit of Spanish, so that was going to be helpful. But then I was like, well, the only other trip that I ever looked at was Malta. I didn't think anything else. And so I was like, guess I'm going to Malta. And I told everybody that I was going, oh my God, before I had even signed up for the trip. I mean, I was telling people left and right, yeah, I'm going to Malta. Was I signed up? No. Did I have any funding? No. But I was going to Malta. I knew I was going. And so I just want to read you guys this. I try to journal a lot on these trips. A lot of times it kind of gets thrown off course because a lot of stuff ends up happening. But when I first felt that the Lord was calling me to Malta, I wrote this letter to myself as a reminder, and I just want to share that with you guys. So it says, remember when you're in Malta, it's not about you. All of this is going to grow spiritually. All of this is going to grow you spiritually and add to God's kingdom. There will be times where you get sad and frustrated, where you just want to pack up and go home, but you are, yes? Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. But you were sent here for a purpose, God's purpose, and He never fails us. It's going to be scary, and it was, and it's going to be hard, but it's not meant to be easy. That's life as a Christian. As long as you rely on God, you will do wonderful. Don't let the world and His people ruin what God is doing during this time in your life. And don't ever doubt God. He's in control. You'll be nervous, but just remember, with the peace of God, things will work out according to His plan. And so, as you can see behind me, there are, it is my leaving the States, and then there is my little getting to Malta, and then The other one was just really pretty, so I threw it in there. But all right, Phil, will you go to the next slide, please? Okay. So we spent a week of training in Tennessee, and most of it was just to go over things like what you're going to experience overseas, culture shock being one of the biggest. My group right here, there was 15 of us. We were spread out across 5 different countries. It was 6 girls in the UK, and then we had a guy and a girl in Spain, 2 girls in Serbia, and 1 guy in Poland, and then me and my partner Megan in Malta. And this week was just very, very hard. The night before I left, it was an emotional roller coaster, left and right. I couldn't tell you how many times I cried, how many times I doubted whether I'd been called to go to Malta. Told people that I just wanted to stay home, that like it all sounded great, but now that it was actually like time to go, it was very scary. And it made it even harder telling my parents and my sister goodbye. And so pretty sure the security guards like didn't want to bring me through security because I was crying so hard. But but that was the last time I cried until I stepped foot back into Oklahoma. And I told God, I was like, I do not want this to be a trip where I get so homesick that I cry myself to sleep every night. And he obviously delivered because I didn't cry at all. So so when we got to Tennessee, we had stayed in Knoxville. We had our coordinators for the trip and then our training coordinators there. Michael Goodman, who was our trip coordinator, him and his wife had set up a couple to help train us that they had trained on the field. Michael and Susan live in London, so they come over periodically to the States for training like this. And so we ended up meeting them that afternoon. All of us had flight delays, which, why? I don't get it. But we had finally all made it to Knoxville. We got to meet each other. I didn't get to meet Megan until that night. She had a 7-hour delay. And so when she got to the host house that we were staying at, we became very close friends very fast. We shared the same bed, and one thing about Megan is that she's a cuddler, and I am not. So that was all very new. We got to know each other very fast that way. But so the first full day of training, we did a lot of prayer walking, which I didn't really know that I was going to be a fan of. Not that there's anything wrong with prayer, because there's not, but just kind of what I had been told growing up, like with mission trips, like, oh, that's all they do is prayer walking, it's like vacation, and I really didn't want it to be that. But we had ended up going to several streets and broke off into groups and did prayer walking, and I loved it. And a couple days after that, we got to go back to the neighborhoods and actually do outreach. And of course, there was this Spanish household, and I was like, yes. I was like, God is going to let me use my Spanish skills. It's going to be great. I'm about to show them all up. I forgot every bit of Spanish that I know. Like, I got hola. Like, that was it, but it just wasn't working. But thanks to God and the power of Google Translate, we were able to communicate, and we did find out that they were believers. And so we had told them, hey, like, we're working with this church this week. We'd love to invite you. And so just getting to be part of the community there for that week. I mean, I know it's not long, but it's better than nothing. But we got to do that. And after prayer walking one day, we had gone to this little coffee shop. And I'm not one to really talk to strangers. I mean, like, I will if I'm really feeling extroverted there, but I made a friend that was on our hands-on team, and she's very extroverted. So she was going up to people right and left, talking to them. And we ended up meeting 3 people, and it was just a great conversation. I mean, you could just feel God moving while we were there. And it really encouraged us for our trip. They were very excited. The older couple that we had met, they were like, oh my gosh, we need to know more about IMB. Like, we got to get our granddaughter involved. Like, this would be great. She would love it. And so it was just a God thing. And we all prayed together, and it was beautiful. But as part of our training, we would, so let's see. Oh, nope, not yet. Sorry. That's in a second. So the one where we're like sitting at tables, we would go in there and we would go over a lot of like how to share your testimony. So we started with a 2-minute testimony and we ended with 15 seconds. And if you've ever done a 15-second testimony, bravo, because it is hard. And so it was really like drilled into our brains, like if you only get a couple seconds with someone, like you've got to share. This is what this is made for. And so we went over that a lot. We went over culture shock, what we were going to experience, and it was a lot. And at first I was like, whatever. I was like, culture shock, like I'm fine, I'll be okay. I've been out of the country before, I'll be fine. And I'm glad I had this training. But so we had that during the week. We had a day where we prayed for an entire hour, which was so hard because I wanted to fall asleep just because like everybody's voices were just so calming. But it was very much a safe space and I loved it. I really do encourage an hour of prayer. I mean, it was incredible what happened. But we also, during this time, I had brought solarium cards. And for those of you who know solarium, then that says enough. But basically, they're these cards, they've got pictures on them. There's like 50 of the cards. And you present the gospel with them. You ask like an easy question. First, you're like, okay, pick 3 pictures that you want to represent your life right now, or 3 pictures that represent your life right now. And you go on and on until finally you get to the question of, okay, pick a picture that describes God to you. And I've had various answers to that, but it is really good, especially when you're on a campus. And so I had taught my group how to do that because a lot of them weren't familiar with it. So we'd done that, and then the night before we were leaving, we had a hand washing ceremony, which was very odd at first. It was just one of those things, like when you have people come up to you and they put your hands on you to pray, like it's just kind of weird sometimes. But but with this, they had like washed our hands and prayed over us, and it was something that I was very blessed to be a part of. It was really cool. But the next slide. So this is the Ingalls scale. You can't really see it. It's a little blurry, but I'll explain. So basically, our coordinator had told us that when you get out onto the field, nobody's going to be like spot on a perfect Christian. They're not going to be where we want them to be. And so you've got 0, which is trust in Christ. And I mean, that's not what I would expect at all for 0. I would expect 0 to be doesn't know anything about the Lord, unreached people group. That's what I would think. But no, so we have multiple layers there, and the people that I was working with were at the very bottom. So that was -12. So going from people that don't know anything, that don't want to know anything, it made it really hard to share with them, because then you get discouraged, and you don't want to be discouraged because like it's a mission trip. You want to be on that spiritual high. But I mean, the truth, like when it came down to it, was these people don't know who God is, and we have to tell them. So that was a very big learning experience for me, especially coming from Oklahoma, where, I mean, I grew up in the Bible Belt, so, like, what do you mean you don't know who Jesus is? You don't know who God is? So that was something that I was going to have to figure out, okay, this is how this works over here, and oh no, we can't say that, we can't use this terminology. You've really got to dumb stuff down, because you're not going to go up to somebody and be like, are you saved? Because, like, saved from what? Like, what do you mean, what am I saved from? So just being able to have a time where we could all figure out what we're supposed to be saying and being able to use this as a guide was extremely helpful. Next. So this was the day that we left. A lot of flight delays. They would not let us check our luggage in. We got kicked out of a restaurant, so we had to eat on the airport floor. And it was just very mission trip-like, to put it. It made for a very long day, and then we had about a 9-hour flight to London. We flew into London first, and then from London we all went our various directions. So next, that's my rough estimate. Also, I don't know what happened. I did not have this yellow highlighter on here, so just ignore it. It's fine. But 20 hours later, and then we made it to Malta. So I did try to learn Maltese. I'm not going to speak it to you at all. But so we made it to Malta at like 5 in the evening. We'd been up for over 24 hours at this point, extremely exhausted, ready to go to bed. And my supervisor said, "We're going to Bible study." I said, "Oh, okay, all right." Like, yeah, nice to meet you, by the way. But so we had, as soon as we had gotten out of the airport, got our luggage and everything, we went straight to our flat and then straight to Bible study. And I felt so bad because I was so tired. I don't remember half the night. I remember people trying to talk to me and me just shaking my head and acting like I knew what they were saying. And Megan was the same way. And so we just kind of skip over that because we just don't like to remember all the bad. But so the towns that you're seeing here are Marsa Scala, where we lived. There's obviously one at night and then one during the day. It's the southernmost point of the island. Island's only like 18 miles long, so that's my drive from my house to here. So it really put it into perspective when I found out that, oh, this island is that tiny, and I'm claustrophobic. So, but no, so we were on the southernmost tip of Malta, and we really did enjoy it so much there. Usually people go to Marsa Scala to start a family, raise their family, so there's a lot of kids everywhere, which we were really excited to work with. But yeah, so that's a little bit about that. Next one. So exactly what it says. So, oh, that picture rotated. Okay, anyways. So this one that's rotated right here, those are my jeans hanging from my curtain rod. So a big part of living in Europe is I didn't realize that we really don't have a lot of dryers over there. And if you have a dryer, you must be like rich or something. And so we did not have a dryer. Everything was hung dry. That was so annoying at times. But so we would just hang our clothes in various places around the place because it was like, well, what else are you gonna do? I mean, you gotta have clothes. But so there's that. There's a picture of our dishwasher. We didn't have a dishwasher for the first 2 months while we were there because we ended up moving flats halfway in. And so the night before, the dishes didn't get clean, so I thought I'd add a little bit more soap. And it was a little too much soap. The soap went everywhere, and it about flooded the place. But so that was also an experience. And then the bus system was something that I don't ever want to relive, but at this time, like in my life, I've got it. If I need to get on a bus now, I've got it. It took us like 2-3 weeks to figure out the bus system, and even then, I mean, we still had no idea what we were doing. We were just like, oh, we hope that we're getting to the right place, because when we saw everybody getting off the bus, guess what? We did too. So we hardly ever got anywhere on time or to the right place, which there again was a learning experience. But I think one of my biggest learning experiences when it came to household stuff was how to cook over there. Because now I'm gonna brag on myself just a little bit here. I think I'm a great cook, but over there, they don't have anything that I use to cook here. And so I was trying to make, gosh, I don't know, Alfredo sauce. So like that's not a thing in Europe, for those of you that don't know. But so I was like, I'm gonna make my own Alfredo sauce. All the cheese that I used the entire time there, and I mean, I experimented a lot, guys. Did it melt right? No. You had like clumpy. It was disgusting. I'm not even gonna talk about it. But so figuring that out, and then we also didn't have anything to measure anything with, so I measured with my heart, and it worked out sometimes, and it worked out really badly other. But so it was very new trying to learn all that, learning just the atmosphere of the people. Our supervisors wanted us to have about like a 2-week break where we learned a little bit of Maltese during that time. They really wanted us to get over jet lag because that took forever. And they just wanted us to get to know Marsa Scala. So we would take little trips around Marsa Scala, we'd check everything out, met a lot of the locals. Locals knew us by name because we would show up at the coffee shop every morning. More specifically, Megan. Megan was addicted to 2 coffee shops and never went anywhere else. But, so I mean, just getting to learn a whole different atmosphere was insane. And I mean, I stayed up that first week way longer than I should have. I was like, God, are you sure we're supposed to be here? Because this is just not what I was expecting at all. And I'd call my mom, I'd be like, Mom, it's really different over here. I mean, it's not a bad different, but it's different. And I learned very quickly not to use the word different when I talked to people over there, because they were like, well, how's it different? I was like, it's not America, sorry. But no, I really got used to the Maltese lifestyle. Everybody is very slow paced. Most of Europe is, except for like Germany. They're very high maintenance over there, which I love, but that's fine. But no, so they're very slow paced. Like the first time that we really went to go eat in a restaurant, we were like, why aren't they giving us the bill? We're ready to leave. We'd sit there for like another 30 minutes. We were like, can we get the tab, please? And they'd be like, oh yeah, you're ready to go? Do you want anything else? You guys want drinks or something? No, we just want to go home. We're tired. No, they just thought we were so crazy. It's like, oh, didn't realize this was like, we got to sit down and take our time, and do not tip over there. Those people get offended if you tip, and that was a little bit of a rude awakening. But it's fine. It's fine. I was like, I'm just American. I'm a little dumb, so just bear with me. But so that was a roller coaster in itself. Then the next picture, this is my church in Marsa Scala. I think there's like 18 of us right there. We're a very, very small church. I don't know what I expected, but I expected something a lot bigger than that. When we got there, there was, I think, 13 with me and Megan as part of the congregation. And it grew to like 20, 25 by the time we'd left, which I thought was awesome, because I mean, from what we started with. And all those kids are so special to us. We had so many opportunities to get to work with these kids, and even though here, I'll just go ahead and let you look at the next slide. So this was how big our church was. It was an office space. So like, little door right there, you go downstairs, that's the entrance, and it opens up into the far right picture, and that is where we would have chairs like wall to wall, people sitting on top of each other. And we'd have like the piano up there, and Joe played the guitar, and then Scott, my supervisor, he would preach. And so it took a long time for me to really appreciate it, because I love my church family here so much, and I love the atmosphere, and over there it was completely different. I really felt like I was kind of alone at church, because not that there weren't people around my age, but it's a lot different when I've been going to one church literally my entire life. I grew up here, everybody knows me, to going to a church that I don't know these people, I don't speak the language that half these people speak, which made it really difficult. But at the end, I just learned to love it. And the picture in the middle is actually from Easter, and that was so exciting. I had taken my Evangel Cube in there, and I was like, this is perfect. I was like, it's Easter. I've got the resurrection story right here. I was like, we want to teach these kids. And there was this one little boy that just absolutely ate it up. He loved every bit of it. And he at the end of the service was like quoting everything back to me. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, if I didn't get anything out of this trip and that was it, thank the Lord. Because it was just so exciting to get to see. I mean, he was 6, I think. So like having this kid who is bilingual, all of the kids were bilingual, which there again made it hard. But so like having this little boy tell me the resurrection story, and he's proud to tell it. He was telling everybody it. And so just to like get that instilled in them from that young of an age was amazing. And thankfully all of their parents have been so good with them. I mean, like Bible stories for bedtime and just like bringing them to church events. Not that we had a lot because we were very small, but they were constantly a part of our congregation, and like we made it known that we loved them. So that was very important for me, because I mean, it's hard when you've got new people in the small area, and you just want to make them feel loved and comfortable. So this is it's kind of a funny. We call ourselves Yabs. It's the young adult Bible study that we had. I met like a handful of these people my first day in Malta when we went to Bible study, but it really grew, which I really didn't realize, because I think the first night that I was there was like 4 of them, and by the end I think there was like 20 of us, which was so cool. And this is the other church that we partnered with, KEB, which is like, gosh, I really don't want to say it because I'm going to butcher it, but it's like Canisa Evangelica Baptista. Also, I forgot to mention this, Maltese is 70% Arabic, and I had no idea. I was going into this thinking, oh yeah, we got a lot of Italian, Italy's right here, we're going to have a lot of Italian. No, not at all. And I kept thinking, I was like, well, Italian's close to Spanish, so like, work it a little bit. And then they were like, no, it's 70% Arabic. And I was like, well, good luck, I ain't learning it now. But no, so I got to meet all these people. A lot of them are foreign exchange students. I think the entire time I was in Malta, I maybe met 10 Maltese, which is crazy. They're very well known for having international students come in, and most of these were international. We had people from Hungary, Romania, Poland, the UK, Czechoslovakia, oh my goodness, Brazil. There was some other one, I cannot think. Anyways, but so we were a very mixed group, and we got a lot of different inputs, especially in scripture. I mean, just having a Bible study together was so interesting, because you've got people from all these different countries that have a different interpretation of the Bible. And we actually had one guy who I didn't realize at the time. I just thought he really liked to argue with people, but he is an atheist, and so he would like show up to Bible study, and he'd like kind of argue scripture, and I was like, okay, this man, I was like, all right, this man's got some good points here, you know. And then I realized when we left, they were like, you know, he's atheist. I was like, what? I was like, oh, well, alrighty. I was like, we're really gonna like have to love on him some more. Because I mean, he was super nice, but it was the fact that like anytime that we said anything biblical, he'd be like, oh yeah, whatever, like that doesn't mean anything, God's not real, blah blah blah. And I'm like, you so badly just want to bang it into their head, but that's just not the right Christian thing to do, so you can't do that. But we ended up getting along really well with him, and as I know of, he is still very active in our Bible study, and we are just praying that something good comes of it. It was just such a fun group. We did so much together. This next slide. So the top corner, we crashed a wedding. um, which was so much fun. If you want to hear the most redneck thing I did, it was that, because I stood there with a bag of popcorn watching this wedding at the doorway as they're like walking out, and it was just a fun time. I mean, we were all having fun, and it's like, when am I ever gonna get to crash a wedding in Malta again? Like, this is cool. But so that was the entire group. We had a young adult trip to Gozo, which is another island. Malta's made up of 4 islands, and so Gozo is kind of like the vacation destination. And we all took a trip there during April and stayed for the weekend. We did Bible study, prayer, and worship, and it was so much fun to get to hang out with them for the last time there and just really get to bond again with each other. Because as much as we did get to do a lot of bonding, especially game nights were so scary. If you ever play games with young adults, I'm really praying for you, because I hate it. They are vicious. They're kind of like the youth. They're vicious. But they've got like the adult mentality, so they're trying to be nice about it. But it just doesn't sound like it. But we had game night at our flat one night, and I told Megan, because Megan wanted to have one every week. I said, my social battery can't do that, honey. We're not gonna do that. And she was like, oh no, we can do it. After this night, she said, we're not doing that again for a while. And we did not. Oh, it's okay. With this trip, our biggest ministry was supposed to be at the university, which was, I'm gonna be honest with you, is a little bit of a joke. So my supervisors, before we made it to Malta, they had like FaceTimed us and kind of laid out the expectations, what we were gonna be doing, and they really pushed for the university work. And when we got there, there was nothing. And they had told us, they were like, yeah, we have this one girl that she's really in it. We got there and she didn't exist. And so we got very discouraged, because we were like, well, what are we supposed to do? Like, we're trying to build this ministry from the ground up, and we don't, obviously we don't have experience with that. We're about to get some, but we don't have it yet. And so it was a bit of a nightmare. Our supervisor came to the campus, was with us 3 times, I think, and every single time the first time we did prayer walk, but then the couple times after that, we would sit there and have another meeting, which we were supposed to have on Monday. So we would have 2 meetings, but one would be at the university, and that was just very frustrating, because I was like, I thought you were supposed to lead us through this, kind of show us what we're supposed to be doing. And so the weeks after that, when we'd go on campus, we would constantly be looking for okay, where are students at? What are student hours? What does that look like? Where can we get access to? Because out of all the places on the campus, we thought that the library would be okay, we can go to the library. No, you can't take anything in the library, which doesn't make sense. Aren't you supposed to study in the library? But so that part kind of fell out, but they had 2 places. One was called the Quadrangle, and then you had the Hub, and the Hub had all the games and the restaurants, and then the Quadrangle was the cafeteria, and people would just sit outside. So we took to that. A lot of the times we would sit in coffee shops and try to talk to people. We had a lot of little coffee dates with people, because that was just so easy with college students. They'd be like, oh yeah, coffee? Yeah, sure, we'll get coffee. And it would be in between a class break, so it was just perfect timing for them. So we did that a lot. We did, we did Solarium. And that was another experience. It's when you have people that have no idea who God is, who Jesus is, and then you're kind of placing all this out in an area and asking them all these questions, they don't take kindly sometimes to what you're saying to them, and you don't really like the answers sometimes. There was one guy that we had met, and I asked him, I was like, so what's a picture that you believe describes God? And he picked up a broken bicycle, and he was like, 'cause he's getting me nowhere in life, and like just all this negative stuff about God. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, calm down, it's okay. And you just kind of have to explain it with as much love and care as you can. And it gets really difficult because you just want them to understand that, like, there's heaven and hell. I mean, there's no in between there. And so it's really hard to watch that. But it was so much fun getting to meet all the people. We met professors out there for Solarium. I mean, it wasn't just the students. Professors were coming up. They were curious why we were on campus. And my favorite, so the top corner picture of me and Megan, there's a guy and his name is Jerome. We'd probably been on the campus maybe a month now, and we were like, all right, we're out of ideas. We don't know what to do. We're going with plan B, dumb Americans. So we start walking around and we're like, you guys know where like the library's at? And they're like, oh yeah, it's up here. And we're like, okay, thanks. And we walked up to the library and walked right back out. And they were like, oh, did you not find it? And we were like, yeah, we did. We just didn't want to go in. They were like, what are you doing here? Like, what's the point? And we're like, oh, well, since you asked. We constantly referred to the trip as, oh my gosh, now I'm drawing a blank, an internship. And so we were like, oh, we're here for this internship. We're working with this church down in Marsascala. And at first, I mean, they were very cold-shouldered, didn't really want to talk to us. And we just kept pressing. And finally, Muhammad, because Muhammad is from Libya, and then Jerome is from Luxembourg. And so we were just kind of like, well, what are you guys doing here? Are you students? We were like, we're not students, obviously, like you caught us. But so they kind of explained why they were here, and Muhammad was like, well, from Libya, blah, blah, blah. We asked like, oh, like, you guys go to a church or anything? And he was like, oh, well, I'm Muslim. And we were like, oh, okay. And then Jerome was just like, oh, like, I don't really believe anything. My family grew up Christian, but I don't really associate with anything. And I was like, okay. And throughout the next 2 months, we made the best relationship with them. We would go to campus twice a week, and of those 2 days, we would usually meet them both days. We would go out for lunch, we would play foosball, I mean, whatever was there at the time. And we ended up getting to share the gospel with them, and Muhammad was like, you guys are the first Christians I've ever met. And we were like, what? He's like, yeah, the first Christians I've ever met, and he had no idea anything about the New Testament, and so we're like, here, like, read this, like, this is great, you've got to look at this. And so we made such a great relationship with them, and I talked to Jerome several times, and I was like, so, your family grew up Christian, but like, why did that, like, what's going on there? And he was like, well, I'm interested in religion, I want to get back into it. And so I was like, oh, perfect. I was like, so here's our Bible study. That I know of has not shown up, but there again, seed has been planted. And so we really got to know them. It was great. God really put us in their lives for a reason. And it was just incredible hearing their stories and being able to understand other religions. Because, like with Maltese, 95% of the population is proclaimed Catholic. And so we did a lot of homework on what Catholicism was, how it differs between Christianity. And so just being able to see a whole different light and being able to expand our knowledge of the world, especially with religion, it was helpful because now we can, like, have conversations with people of a different religion, and we're like, okay, like, I understand where you're coming from, can I explain my part now? And just being able to sit there and listen to them and appreciate them was definitely such a goal that we had, and it worked out perfectly. Um, we did meet several other people on campus, but those two were really the ones that we worked with. Um, a lot of Maltese are not very, they have a very small circle, kind of like how you were saying this morning. Their circle's very small, but their circle's made of 30 people. That is the known Maltese circle. So it's very hard to make friends and make those relationships and want to continue to like schedule coffee with them or say, oh, hey, like we're doing this tonight, want to join us? It's very hard for them to want to do that with people that they just met. But these two, it was great. I mean, we just had so much to share with them, and it was incredible. These girls right here, the girl in the middle, her name is Agnieszka. She is from Poland. She was there for an internship, like 2 months, but she became our best friend, and we absolutely loved spending time with her. The other two girls, Kelsey and Sam, they also went to the university, so we would meet up with them occasionally, and I mean, they were at that point in life, they were believers and everything, but they didn't have other girls that were their friends that were believers. And so we just really got to work with each other and just bounce ideas back and forth, grow deeper in the faith, and it was so much fun. I mean, we had karaoke night, and it was, my parents would have hated it, but it was so much fun. So the next one, this is the famous Medicaid that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of by now. So when we first arrived in Malta, we'd been expecting like this nice sunny place, and it was really kind of rainy, which I love the rain, so I was just all for it. But within the next couple weeks, I think we'd been there 2 weeks, and we were supposed to go to the university that day. We had messaged our friend Yoel, and we were like, hey, we're coming to the university, and he was like, oh, well, I'm like in the middle of a volleyball game, like can't really meet you. And we were like, oh, okay, well, I don't know what we're gonna do. And we still plan on going to the university. Missed our bus, which was not uncommon for us. So we missed the bus, and then we were like, well, we'll go back up to the flat, and then we'll come back down for the next bus. Because the bus time on the actual stop was correct, but the one online was not. So that was where we were late all the time. But we were like, okay, we'll run back up to the flat real fast, and then we'll head back down. Well, we get back down, and we're like, oh my gosh, it's really raining hard. Maybe we shouldn't go to the university. There's not going to be a lot of students out there because everything's open. And so we're like, no, nobody's going to be at the university. We should probably just go back up to the flat. So go back up to the flat. Well, then she's like, I really think we should go to a coffee shop. And I'm like, oh, perfect. It's rainy. Let's go to a coffee shop. Well, we get out there, and it's raining harder. I'm like, man, I was like, there's nobody out. I was like, what's wrong with these people? And we start walking further down the sidewalk, and we're like, man, everything's closed. Why is everything closed? Like, middle of the week, everything's open. We kept walking, and we were going to, so how it curves around in the back, we were going to walk all the way around the other curve, and we got to, before the red truck. We got there before the red truck, and we're like, oh, there's this fast food place. We're like, oh, it's got chicken. It was called Chick King. I thought it was the funniest name, but we were like, guess we'll get some chicken. It's like, we're kind of missing American food. We'll just get some fast food chicken. Like, how bad can it be? We start going back up to the flat, and at this point, the rain is, like, it's raining so hard. We only have one umbrella. The chicken's getting wet. I mean, it was a disaster. And as we start walking up this slope, take in mind, we'd already changed clothes once, so we're going up this horrible hill. We hated it, and all of a sudden, our shoes are just sopping wet, and I was like, oh my gosh. And if I wouldn't have been with Megan, I would have been so frustrated out of my mind. But we laughed the entire time, and we got back there drenched, all of our clothes drenched. We were like, okay, well, we'll just like put on some new clothes or whatever, I guess, turn on a movie, we'll sit here and eat our chicken. And our supervisor's like blowing up our phone. We're like, what is going on? And she was like, we're in a Medicaid. I was like, okay, and what does that mean? She's like, well, it's a Mediterranean hurricane. I was like, oh, I'm not really used to hurricanes. Oklahoma really doesn't get them. And Megan over here is from Mississippi, and she lives in Long Beach, down there by Biloxi. And so she was like, oh, it's just a hurricane. I'm like, okay, we're sitting there. We watched, I don't know, I think we'd finished our movie, and I got up to go look outside, and the waves were just slamming against everything. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I was like, this island's so small. I was like, we're gonna die. This is how it all ends. We're drowning today. And so we'd gotten back on there. We're kind of looking at the radar and everything. And I just happened to see this picture somebody had posted online, and I was like, that kind of looks like Marcia Scala. Wait. And then, because I told Megan this earlier, I was like, man, that guy really needs to move his car, that red truck right there. He really needs to move it because, man, if it really starts raining, he's right there by the water. It's gonna go away. Well, what did I tell you? Like, that guy needed to move his truck desperately because it wasn't going anywhere but the water. And so I did that entire night. I think we were stuck in the flat for like 2 days, 3 days, something like that. I mean, it really wasn't like horrible. But in the middle of the night, I woke up and I just kept thinking, I was like, God, I really don't want to die by drowning, but I don't know what else to say. I called my mom. I was like, I think we're gonna drown. I was like, this whole island, it's going under. It's gonna be like Atlantis. We're going nowhere but down. And she's kind of freaking out. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like, if we die, we die. It's fine. And and then in the middle of the night, I was like, it got really quiet, and that's when you get scared. Cause I'm used to these naders out here. Like, I was expecting to just get blown out, and my supervisor like stay up real late. So I get this text from her at 3 a.m. and she's like, we're in the eye of the storm right now. I was like, what? I was like, whatever happens, happens. I'm going back to bed. I really don't care. I was like, we get blown off the earth, we're fine. It's gonna be okay. And so that was a once in a lifetime thing right there. They told us, they were like, this never happens. Well, of course it does. I'm here. So that was an experience itself, and there was debris everywhere. The morning that I finally got to go walking, we always walked this curve right here, and then eventually when we moved into our second flat, we had come downhill that way. And so I was walking one morning, and I spent a lot of time with Brits. And so I was walking down the sidewalk one day, and I was like, look at all this rubbish. What is all this rubbish? And I was like, oh gosh, I'm turning into one. I told my mom, I was like, Mama, I just keep saying the word rubbish, and I don't know why. Well, then I talked to my Brit friend, and I was like, Justine, there's rubbish all over. And she was like, oh, I've taught you something. I was like, once I go home, it's going out the door. I hope you know that. But so that was definitely an experience, and honestly, I would live it again. It was kind of fun, but but that leads into, I don't even know what's next. Oh, this, okay. So they're kind of spread out. There are 3 different events, so to speak, and kind of separated into months. The first one, with the lady's head right there in the middle, that was like the second week I think we were in Malta. We have supervisors over our supervisors. So Earl and Robin have lived in Malta for 25 years, and they are kind of like, they're over my supervisors. So there's Earl and Robin, and then there's Scott and Denise, and then there's also another couple, which I'll mention here in a minute, Edwin and Sylvia. They, I don't know how they fit into the puzzle, actually. They're super nice, though. But Earl and Robin became really good mentors of ours. Earl is like a human history book. Like, the first night we met him, we were tired out of our minds, and he drove us all the way through Malta, like giving us a history lesson of everything. I couldn't keep up with the man. I'm like, what are you talking about? And his wife we hadn't met yet, but she ended up becoming one of our favorite people. We'd constantly get lunch with her. She was definitely a mom. I mean, she's got 3 kids, but every time we'd see her, she'd be, do you guys need to go to the bathroom before we leave? No, Robin, I'm good. Thanks for asking, though. But so we met them, and then the other couple is from Germany, Benny and Jackie. They came down from Germany for a week in Malta. They are thinking about moving to Malta in the next 2 years to start university work. And so since we were going to be working at the university, we had kind of run some ideas through them, and they kind of gave us some. And the next day we prayer walked with them at the campus. But with Earl and Robin, they were constantly there for everything. We helped them with so much. I don't know. It was just like having another set of parents there. It was so much fun. They were hilarious and constantly giving us feedback on stuff, asking us how we were. And their kids are our age, so they were like, well, if you need anything, like our son's coming back from the States, like we can pick you something up. We're like, oh, we think we're good, but thank you, you know. And so we did a lot with them, and they were so much fun. And then in the middle here, it's me and Meg, and then Beverly. Bev and her husband Fred are from North Carolina, and they came to Malta. I guess they do this like pretty yearly. There's what's called a Blue Med conference, which is what Edwin and Sylvia are over. Edwin used to be the pastor at the church that Earl is now, and so they kind of roped us into working. And at first I was like, oh gosh, I was like, a conference? This does not sound fun. This is not like, it's just gonna be chaotic. And it was so much fun. We had we met Bev and Fred randomly one day. They all invited us over for banoffee, which if you've ever had banoffee, it's so good. I promise I will make you guys some soon. I just gotta get the recipe from Sylvia. It's the best thing I've eaten. Anyway, so we went over there for banoffee, and they were like, oh yeah, we'd love for you to be part of this conference. We'd love to have you work. And I was like, okay. And when we finally started doing some more, like we did a lot of name tags and everything at first, and we had no idea what the conference was. And then finally they were like, oh yeah, so this is like super top secret. And I was like, eh? I was like, don't be telling me that. Like, I'll tell everybody. And which obviously I am, but it's okay. You guys can keep a secret. No, so this conference, basically it's 600 missionaries came to this conference, and it is pretty much like really focused on Middle East and North Africa regions. And so we had people obviously coming from the States, coming from Istanbul, Istanbul's in Turkey. Anyways, we had people coming from all over, and especially Africa, as a lot of them were serving there. But they had pseudonames and just crazy. Like, there was this one lady, we had her name on there twice, and we thought that she was coming with her husband, and she was like, no, that's my pseudonym. And we were like, oh shoot, we don't know your first name then. Yeah, just wipe that clean. We don't know who you are. But there was a lot of missionaries there that had been persecuted and captured in other countries, and so very high security. We had security guards everywhere at the conference. To get in, you had to have a badge that had your name and some people had what company they were with. Those that were with IMB did not, which was really hard to find them because we wanted to talk to some of them, and that was just really difficult because we didn't know who anybody was. But it was an awesome week. We had stayed in St. Paul's Bay that week, which I'll get to that later. But we had stayed there at the hotel. The first 2 days, we were sent to the airport to direct everybody getting off their flight. We spent like a third of our time, I swear, in that airport. We were always in that airport for something, and we called it our third home. We got very well acquainted with the airport. But so they would get off their flight, and then we would be like, okay, you're so-and-so, all right, get on this bus, and we would like get them all grouped up and everything and send them on over to the hotel. And it was a lot of work, and I really thought that they were gonna be kind of nasty because getting off a flight that long, I get it, like it's not fun, but they were so fun. And so many of them, like there was one woman I met, and as soon as I met her, she was like, what do you do back home? I was like, oh, well, I'm a college student, like going for elementary education. And she was like, you're going for education? Yeah. How would you like to come teach over, oh my gosh, I can't even think. I'm drawing a blank, y'all. Anyways, wherever I was going, it was like Poland or something. Gosh, I cannot think. Prague, that's what it was. Okay, anyways, Prague. They were like, oh my gosh, we would love to have you come and teach in Prague. And I was like, all right, yeah, whatever. Cool, thanks. She like gave me her contact info and everything. I had so many people coming out of the woodworks. They were like, oh yeah, we'd love for you to do this and this and this, giving me business cards for things. I was just like, I'm just supposed to tell you guys where to go. I was like, thank you, but I'm just here right now. Like, we'll talk later. And gosh, we made so many contacts that week, and it was awesome because all these people came from different places, and they were all like, oh yeah, if you're ever here, just call us. You can stay at our house. There's one guy who, so I've always loved Ireland, never been there, but I love it. And he was from Ireland, and he was like, oh yeah, my wife and I will let you bunk in our place. And I was like, for real? He was like, yeah, you just let us know when you're in the area. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I'll get right on that, Clyde. So anyways, we made a lot of contacts that week, and even after the 2 days at the airport, we had gotten very involved with what was going on in the MENA region, that's what they called it. But it was so cool. I mean, countries that I had never really thought of. We talked a lot about Libya and Israel and Morocco, and gosh, there were so many others, I can't think. But getting to like see what these people were experiencing in other countries and being able to be like, oh yeah, that's something that we would love to be part of. And it was just an awesome experience. We were very blessed to be there, and so excited that God had put these people in our lives, because Edwin and Sylvia do like 36 of these conferences in a year. And so they're constantly flying everywhere for them, getting people all ready for them. So it's very exciting to see that. Then the other picture is the women's retreat. We had a little women's retreat for the women of Malta, and it was just so much fun. We got to meet other girls that were believers, and we all got together. I think there was 100 of us. We all got together, and we would like sing and worship, and we'd do breakouts. And it was just so cool because there again, you're seeing all these people come from different places, because it wasn't just Maltese there. I mean, people would fly in from places. And so getting to see that was just so exciting. And there again, there's Agnieszka. But then other friends that we made that week too. Now, real fast, I'm going to talk about the whole St. Paul versus St. Thomas Bay thing real fast. It's a very big debate in Malta. Okay, that one, yeah. So, St. Thomas Bay is where I lived. Well, I lived in Marsa Scala, but the bay's right there. And there's a big debate on whether Paul actually shipwrecked in St. Paul's Bay or St. Thomas Bay. I think St. Thomas Bay because they found 4 of the anchors from the shipwreck there. I mean, if that kind of doesn't prove something, but so it was so cool getting to experience that. And the first time that we got to walk the bay, I just kept saying to Megan, I was like, "Look, we're walking where Paul walked. This is so cool." I brought some sand home. I brought rocks home. I was like, maybe Paul touched this. Like, I'm just keep it in my pocket. But it was so cool getting to experience that. And even though Malta is only mentioned in like this much of the Bible, it was so cool just like really trying to dig deeper into that and like figure out, okay, like this is where he was, like this is what was going on during this time. And like the whole snake bite thing, people swear that there's not a snake on Malta. And so far I can attest, I didn't see a single snake while I was there. But they say that when he like got bit by the snake, shook it off, that like that was the end of the snakes. But then later on in the passage, it talks about Paul going to heal the emperor at the time, and this is Mdina. It's the oldest city in Malta. The first picture, which some of you have probably seen it because I loaned it to Mark, but that is where they say Paul walked it in to the emperor's palace. And then the second picture is like the area where he was supposedly healed. So it was just really cool getting to see all the history. And I mean, it's Paul. Like, who wouldn't want to step where Paul stepped? But so there was that. And then, okay, so we got to take a little 2-day trip to Rome. And the history there was immense. I'd never seen anything like it. What are y'all laughing at back there? So we went to obviously Rome, and then the Vatican's its own country, which I don't know why I keep forgetting that, but so we got to go into the Vatican and to Rome. And the top corner picture where it says Roma is the painting of the Calling of St. Matthew, which I learned about in art class, and I'm a little bit of an art freak now. But so it was so exciting to like see the original painting and being able to like tell people the story behind it and actually like understanding more of it myself. Then next to it, you have, which guys, you are not supposed to take pictures in the Sistine Chapel. I don't know who did. It obviously wasn't me. But so you have the painting of the Judgment Day by Michelangelo, and then to the side of it is the creation of Adam, which is just so cool, guys. I was so overwhelmed. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And then the bottom part of the creation of Adam down there, that is the Last Supper, which probably looks really bad because somebody was trying to video it and then they went back and like screenshotted it and it just didn't look very great. I don't know who that was though. And then obviously you've got the Colosseum, which was just crazy. I mean, like to think what went on in there. That's insane. But the bottom corner one is the one that really got me the most. So that's outside of St. Peter's Basilica, and I really didn't know any of the history about it until I was standing right there. And that is where Nero had taken a bunch of Christians and threw some tar on them, lit them on fire right there for everyone to see. And so it really put everything into perspective for me in that moment, because it was like, here I am standing as a Christian in the same spot that all these other Christians were burned alive for Christ. And that is also where Peter was crucified. And in fact, in the basilica, they actually have Peter's pants. I didn't get to see them because the line was like 2,000 people long. But yeah, so anyways, a lot of history there, and it was just very overwhelming, especially that part. it really put into perspective, like, I'm allowed to be in this country as a Christian, and these people, however many years ago, were not. Like, this was what went on there, and the steeple right there is said to be where Peter was crucified. So it was just insane to me. But I had to throw that in there because of the history, and I love history, so it was important. But so this, when we had come back from Italy, we had really been trying to start a backyard Bible club. We had all these kids in our church, and they didn't have anything, like, they didn't have any place to go on like a Saturday to do anything, and we really wanted to be involved with them. So we just kind of went out on a whim, and we were like, we're gonna start this. This is what's gonna happen. It's so important to have these kids brought up in a church, and especially one with as strong as a faith as we had. It was so important for us to reach out to these kids and like tell them the truth. I mean, it was so exciting, and the kids were so fun. I mean, the family that we had there, they were French, and then the other one, she's like Maltese American mix, and so she spoke English and French, and then the French kids also English and French, but not very well with their English. So Vienna helped us a lot, translating wise. But every Saturday we started out doing a lot of lesson planning and everything for Sunday school, because we were Sunday school teachers every single week, and with the group that we had, it kind of was very exhausting, but we loved every minute of it. And when we decided to have Backyard Bible Club, we were like, we really have to pour into these kids. This is so important to us, and we were disappointed with how the college ministry went, and so we were like, we're pouring our everything into these kids. And that's exactly what we did. We would do crafts with them, we'd play games, we always had to have a snack. That was mandatory. But these girls had gone from not really knowing anything about the Bible to, we gave them a list of ABCs, and it was like Bible verses. I mean, shortened, obviously. We weren't going to give them the whole thing and overwhelm them. But we gave them this sheet one week. We were like, we'd love for you guys to go over it with like your mom and like your siblings. They came back the next week and they were repeating it to us. We were like, what? I was like, how are you guys doing this? It was just so exciting. And we really got to see their growth within, because I think they showed up like 2 months in. And so we were so excited to see them grow and just be able to experience it with us. It was perfect. But the kids, they're great. I think that that's really where both of us felt led on this trip, because we did a lot with them. And it was important for us and them that we did this weekly. We didn't want to just like skip a week and do something else. We wanted to be consistent with it. And so when we left Malta, my biggest fear was that when we left, it would also leave. And so I hounded my supervisors. I was like, you will not let our little creation here go to waste. Like, this is so good for these kids. And so they have a new set of interns that have taken it over. And so I'm just praying that it has grown and that the kids are enjoying it even more, because it was something very special to us. So we had, it was like the middle of April, I think. That's really when we started to say goodbye. And it was so sad, a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be so excited to go home. And then I had to say goodbye to all these people, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to miss you. Like, I can't just walk down the road and say hi anymore. And so, oh gosh, it really was. It was so hard to say goodbye, especially to the kids. The kids, like, had nicknames for us, and we had nicknames for them, and so it was one of those things where, I mean, it was hard enough leaving my girls here, let alone leaving them too. And so it was just that feeling all over again, and I was really sad to say bye, but we finally got a picture together, which was very, very important. But so we said goodbye to them, and then at Earl and Robin's, Earl and Robin had kind of like a little going away party for us with an Australian family that we got really close with, and so there was that, and then there's a little cactus up at the top, and when Agnieszka left, we had all carved our initials into the cactus because we're sentimental like that. But it was hard to say goodbye. In some aspects, I was very excited because we were on to our next adventure, but at the same time, it was like, okay, we just left like part of our life that we were just getting used to, and I will tell everybody this. I'm a third Maltese now. Whether you want to believe it or not, I'm a third Maltese. I told Maltese people that. You're like, you're a third Maltese? I sure am. I sure am. Gosh. But saying goodbye was really hard. And I mean, we had just gotten rid of all the culture shock. Like, all the culture shock had already left us. So, like, my want to go to Walmart so badly and eat deer meat every day, it went out the door. I was like, all right, I guess I can live here now. This is fine. I really got used to it. And just leaving it was really hard. But I will be going back. I have made a promise to go back. So then we have London as our final destination before, well, kind of final destination before home. So London is where we had debrief. We all met back up. Some of us, one of my friends on the trip, she ended up going home early for health reasons, and I think she was a little homesick, which was where I thought I would be. I thought I was gonna make it into this trip 2 weeks and then be like, adios, but there we are. So we all met back up in London. My friend Matthew actually extended his term until the end of the year, and he was in Poland. Now he's going to Serbia, which is so cool. He keeps us all in the loop. We've got like a newsletter and everything we send out to each other, so we know what's going on there. But the girls, it was so much fun getting to know them. It was definitely a rough week in London. I kept telling my parents, I was like, I'm gonna get to London, I'm gonna hate it because I wanna go home, and then that's just gonna be it. And I really didn't wanna leave London. I loved it. And there were times where it was a bit crazy. 2 of the girls got sick, and they were staying in our hotel room, and it was just a whole ordeal. You just had to be there. It was something else. But it was sad to say goodbye to them. It wasn't so sad to say goodbye to Jasper, though, because Jasper just lives in Jinx, and I didn't realize that. So I was like, Jasper, we have to get together at some point. Like, I need somebody to talk Europe with, because ain't nobody here want to talk about all this weird stuff that happened, because they don't know what's happening. But, so me and Jasper, we're hanging in there. But we're all from the US, so we have planned to get together at some point. I obviously especially miss Megan. Me and Megan say that nobody could have paired us more perfectly together than God, because, I mean, if I got stuck with anybody else, I think I'd lose my mind. But Megan, we just seemed to work out, and I really wasn't sure when I first met her, but we did great. I mean, the team dynamic there was awesome. We always had each other's backs, and if like one of us didn't feel some way about something, and we would let each other know. It wasn't something that we really just held on to. But that was probably my saddest portion. But anyways, so we're in London, we're doing debrief. A lot of the first couple days, it's just everybody arriving. We all had really weird flights coming in, a lot of delays again, but we finally made it. And then we did some touring, got to see Tower Bridge, Buckingham Palace, the works, Big Ben. I mean, so that part was really cool, because my mom had also been at the same place. I won't age you, Mama, but she was there when she was 20, and so So it was so exciting to like see everything that my mom saw, and obviously tell her that London is not stinky like she made it out to be. It don't smell like that, Mama. It did not. They must have cleaned up or something. But anyways, so we did a lot of touring. We did like a Christian heritage tour with this one guy that just kept holding my hand because he said my hands were warm, and that was really weird. But like okay, um, okay. But so we did that tour. And then we got to go see Les Mis at the London Theatre, which was really cool. And my friend Lindsay bawled her eyes out, and it was kind of funny. And then we really had like our debrief time, and we would go to this little church, and we'd like make our lunch there and everything. I mean, we'd make days out of it, and we just had so much fun. We got to experience all of this together, but also separately, and so we got to share that. And we talked about like our culture shocks there and our culture shocks going back home. And I'm like, why would I experience culture shock going back to the US? I'm born and raised there. Why? I texted Lisa like the night before we left. I was like, Lisa, I don't want to come home. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. I don't want to go back to the US. The US is like, it's going to be scary. It's going to be a whole nother ballpark now. And I was a little right. I was just a little right. When I got to Georgia and I used the public bathrooms and the gaps were this big in between the stalls, that's where I lost it. I freaked out. I just stood there for the longest time. I was like, I can't pee. It's not gonna happen. These people are staring at me. Can't do it. But that was a whole other thing. I meant to mention this. So the grave up there, that's Charles Spurgeon. For those of you, I had to explain it to a couple people, and I'm gonna be honest, I really don't know a lot about the guy. I know like what I need to know. But anyways, he's great. Like founding father wise, when it comes to Christianity. Not that old, but anyways. But we got to see Charles Spurgeon's grave, which was really cool. And then the other pictures are just us at debrief. During that time, we talked to the coordinators, and they wanted like our honest opinion of the trip. Would you do it again? Kind of thing. And to answer the question, I don't know that I would do it again. Yes, I did have a lot of fun on the trip, but I had a lot of free time too, which really put a damper on the trip itself. I felt at times that my supervisors weren't really doing their jobs, and so it was like, we're kind of stranded out here, which I told my dad I had to throw this in. So me and Megan discovered a song, and the lyrics literally say, am I stranded on an island or have I landed in paradise? And that's exactly how it felt. There would be days where we just loved it there, and then there was days that we so badly wanted to go home. But I don't know that I would do it again. I don't know. I felt like we didn't do as much as we should have. And when I talked to my coordinators and the other students that were on the trip, they kind of felt the same way, which I guess is partially on our sponsors, but obviously on us. And so it was one of those things that if I did do this again, I would go in with a totally different mindset this time, because I went in with such a strong mindset to begin with, and it just shattered because it wasn't anything that I'd expected. But I loved every minute of it now. I mean, looking back on it, like it really was great. It was a lot of learning. The two words that I used to describe it, adventurous and life-changing, and that's exactly what it was. And it really was hard to come back just because I had gotten used to a lot of it. But the one thing that I really went in with was I was scared of the change, but the outcome was more of I'm embracing God's plan now. I mean, wherever He sends me, that's that's where I need to be. And I think the two that really helped me with that mindset were Debbie and Dwayne. When I first went to Panama, first international trip, I was so excited. I was on this mission trip high, and like life couldn't get better. And Dwayne sat me down in that airport and said, "Do not let anybody, not anybody, not your parents, not your friends, not people at church, do not let them take this away from you, because it's something that you've experienced, you've changed. They haven't. This like they're not seeing anything like you did out on the field." And so that was one thing that it was constantly my reminder. I always come home now with the I'm not letting anybody tell me how I should have felt on this trip, how this trip should have been, because you weren't there. I mean, and as badly as I wanted you guys to be at times, you weren't. You couldn't be. I mean, you were in prayer. Thank you. But it was one of those things that this was between me and God, and He knows what happened. I know not everything, but I know what I saw firsthand and what happened with me. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you guys. The calls, the phone calls, asking questions, what do I do? And then you guys were just so supportive, and just being able to have family back home that really cared about what was going on and wanted to know, and you guys didn't just strand me out there. It was very appreciated, and I couldn't have done any of this without your guys' support. So I thank you guys so much. Thank you.